So it wouldn't be a media presentation without the words programmatic on a deck. So I'm going to talk to you about a perspective on programmatic and to jump into that. Just a little bit, just very, very quickly. And the reason I say this is stand in the light. This is why it's going to be important, what I'm about to say, for what I'm going to go through. So Ubiquity is a company, lots of you may know us as media auditors. I run their global tech consultancy practice. Just a couple of things. One is, we do not buy or sell any media. We do not buy or sell any technology, and we do not operate any systems on behalf of clients. We are completely independent, impartial, and we as an organization make no more money if our clients put all of their investment in television, which these guys would love, or all of their investment into Google. We make the same amount of money. And the reason I talk about that is I'm going to talk in a minute about data. And as we know, digital has absolutely loads of data out there. And I'm going to talk and reflect on some challenges and considerations to do with data that's happening in the digital space. But before I do so, I just want to give a little bit of background on myself, again, because as I come into the presentation, you'll understand why I need to sort of say this at the beginning. I don't normally start with slides about myself, much to what my team probably think I do. So I've worked in digital marketing for 20 years, 20-plus years, starting in the late 90s. I know, don't look old enough. It's true. I launched AOL's European mobile advertising business back in 2007. So 11 years ago, I was launching mobile advertising services. So I've done in-app, the whole lot around it. And I helped find the IAB UK Mobile Council. I also launched Sky's first mobile advertising offering in 2008. And I was involved in my team, and I led all the building of all of the advertising capabilities for Sky Go and the future set-top box and VOD advertising. I've worked in programmatic advertising for 10 years, probably slightly more than that, and I've worked with all the agency trading groups and helped to power it. So my point is, remember this as we go through this presentation, I am not an outsider. There's lots and lots of people who can critique digital, who can talk about it, who can stand at the sidelines and shout inwards. I'm not one of those people. I'm somebody who's built my career on it, built businesses, and drove revenue from this area. But I do think there's some considerations we have to go into. And I just want to talk very, very briefly to start off with, a little bit of a Damascus moment for me as I came into the industry. I'd worked at AOL from 2000 to 2008, and I joined Sky in 2008. And I went in there thinking, you know what, I'm going to teach these old TV boys, unfortunately they were most boys and men, there weren't many women in senior positions in there, about how digital is the future and everything. And I was really lucky that I had the opportunity to work with people who had built the systems and really understand the other side of it. And for me, it really opened up my mind to traditional media. And as an industry, we're in a challenge now that we have people who have 20 years experience who've never been exposed to offline media or traditional media. And that is a challenge. And the reason that's a challenge is, as we come back to that data piece, I'm going to talk today about 3 things that's problems with the way that the machines are interpreting data that I believe is leading us to make bad decisions on behalf of advertisers or anything in that area. And I'm going to talk about the most powerful supercomputer and how that processes information, because it's a really good example for some watch-outs for us. But I'm not talking about Watson. I'm going to talk about the brain. The brain and how it operates and how it processes information is our filter of the world. How the information comes in and how we work it through our brain and how the decisions we make beyond it is critical to everything from, whether we accept global warming, whether we think Donald Trump is a good president or not, and whether we think digital or TV is the right investment vehicle. And I'm going to talk about 3 heuristics as we run through this process. And a heuristic is any approach to problem solving, learning, or discovery that employs a practical method not guaranteed to be optimal or perfect, but sufficient for the immediate goals. We cannot survive as humans without heuristics. There is too much information coming into us all the time that we have developed over hundreds of thousands of years, this ability to be able to process information and simplify it where we need to do. But the challenge is sometimes these things that are there for our benefits cause us to make bad mistakes and errors. So the 3 that I'm going to talk to later as we go through is cognitive dissonance, confirmation bias, and availability bias. And I think this is really, really important as we go through the other presentations today. Hopefully, even if you keep just these 3 and process through maybe being aware of how you perceive information, That might help us all make sort of, more informed, better decisions. So let's start. Let's start back to where it is, the state of digital and its continued rise. The UK last year, my home market, 11.55 billion was invested into digital advertising. That's over 50% of all paid media investment goes into digital. I started selling advertising in the UK when that was £50 million back in 1999. So it's grown enormously. And programmatic, we know that investment in programmatic, everybody's talking about it, whether you're the media agency trading desks, whether you're the programmatic person in the client, whether you're the tech vendors, or whether you're the venture capital companies that sit in behind that who are trying to exit their businesses. And it's still growing, and it's grown significantly. And I would argue that digital is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, except most of us, and most people I talk to, don't treat it that way. We still treat it as the cool, cutting-edge, innovative, hey, it's a bit hipster, hey, look, they do free lunches, isn't that amazing? And we should be more aware of that now. In no other world, would you be putting 11.6 billion pounds into a medium with maybe the sense of scrutiny that has been gone into it for some time. And I want to give an example. How many people here have seen the film The Big Short about the mortgage crisis from 2007? Great. Great movie. Fantastic movie. Principle of The Big Short is this. Smart people in banks, let's call them maybe digital media people for comparison, decide that if we take a few good bits of inventory, let's call them mortgages, add some medium bits of inventory, and some absolute shit, and we put it all together, we can go to these investors and tell them these amazing mortgage packages of AAA status that you can invest in. And the whole premise of The Big Short is there was a few people out there who actually went through the numbers, who actually went through. Some of them went and visited every house within these mortgage bond groups. And they realized that actually it was a house of cards, and it was built on that area. When they raised that, you had the regulators who were going, no, that can't be true. There is no way that these big, robust banks would be hiding that or doing that. And there is no way that this can't happen. They went to the banks themselves, and the banks tried to shut them down and close them down. That was the mortgage crisis that happened that caused the financial crash. We're lucky in digital. Lives won't be lost, and people won't be made homeless quite so much. But I want to put this into comparison. This was a couple of days ago. Facebook's share value is $458 billion. Google's share value is $815 billion. The two banks who were in that film, who were named as sort of culprits of trying to do this practice, was Goldman Sachs and Deutsche Bank. Goldman Sachs' value is $85 billion. Deutsche Bank is only $20 billion. That's like leftover change, really, in terms of it. But those two banks fought tooth and nail to prove the validity of what they were selling. It was in their share price interest to protect that. Now, here's a question. I'm not saying that what Facebook and Google sell is to the same degree, but wouldn't it be fair to say that maybe Google and Facebook have a slight bias to want you to believe that what they're selling you is good, and to not want you to get into the detail to truly validate it? So what would happen if digital wasn't as powerful as investment and growth indicates? Just jump back one sec, just on that slide. Let's just say, pay a hypothetical question, that digital was half as effective as we think it is. Just half. Surely that would mean that Google's share price would fall dramatically. Facebook's share price would fall dramatically. So what we have here is a scenario where there are significant invested interests in an investment strategy from advertisers to go into it, and they will pool massive resources, and not just them, everybody. If we look at media agencies and their trading desks, and we saw their revenues drive significantly over the years, the revenue that comes into digital advertising is not just about digital investment. It's about people's share prices, their jobs, their promotions, how they're going to go about their business, how they look good in the area. So the reason I talk about this is these are some of the considerations when we look at advice and recommendations about the data around digital that we have to take into account as we go through it. So we did look into it, and we've been looking into it for many, many years. Ubiquity has one of the largest and leading econometric practices in the world, and we work with lots of advertisers. Again, back to what I said at the beginning, we're independent, we're impartial, and we're unbiased. So we've got 20 years experience, 120 plus clients. We've done 500 ROI econometric studies looking at all different media and reviewing a client base of 58 billion in investment a year. Do you know what we find? On average, digital is the worst ROI medium of anywhere you can put your money. So this was probably my second Damascus moment when I moved and had access to this data. So let me say that again. The worst return of investment media of all the media that's out there. TV as it stands delivers a 3-time ROI of digital. And yet, I'm constantly hearing advertisers and agencies and people on the outsides and VCs talk about we should take money from TV and we should put it in this nice new shiny object over here because we've got a blockchain RTB millisecond integration that uses pipework that goes into a DMP. It's fantastic. And advertisers sit there and go, yeah, I don't want to look stupid in front of you, so I'm just going to nod. Now, some of that is changing. But it's not just Ubiquity saying this. So this was a study about source news brands, and it's not just about TV. News brands reach more people each month than Google. And let me bring on again 3 pieces from a single source. They mention us. Ubiquity Payback 3 shows that print is 2.5 times more effective per impact than online display. For some categories, such as retail, I've just lost my slide on there, it's even higher. And a brand science study from Microsoft shows that print delivers 6.4 points. Now, that was WPP's 2016 annual shareholder report, about page 72, if you want to go and have a look at it. And as the biggest, it's gone again, as the biggest media agency group in the world, they have a fiduciary duty to report to their shareholders what they know. Now, that will be very, very different than what you actually see maybe come across to advertisers in the picture of that area. It's all about digital. Digital's great. So it's not just Ubiquity. The data is out there. There is enough data to interpret what is actually going on. So the first thing, the first heuristic I want to talk about, everybody to be aware of, is cognitive dissonance. Our beliefs might be wrong, and these are hard to change. So with cognitive dissonance it's very hard to hold 2 opposing beliefs. It's impossible, actually, to hold 2 opposing beliefs at the same time. So if you believe one thing, you cannot automatically believe something else. You have to go through a change to get there. That means that if you've been working digital your whole career, and this is all you know, and you've had no external data points, when another data point comes along, that makes it a lot more difficult to understand what's going on. So a hypothetical question, put up your hands here, especially if you're a marketer or an advertiser in some of that areas. How many of you here today feel that your business would support the case to reduce marketing investment in digital advertising? Okay. So that's great. I've got about 6 people. So I did a similar presentation to a room full of 120 global marketing procurement people. Now, these are people who are based on science, and we went through this. Oh, there's one there. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, that's not that bad. They're nice people. They really, really are. They're genuinely. And of a room of 120 people, one procurement person put their hands up and said, there is no way that the culture of their business that they operate in, that even if the data supported it, could they stand up and say, yes, we're going to reduce our investment. Again, it has changed a bit over the last year in terms of what we've gone. So what is going on? Why isn't digital working very well? What's actually driving this as a challenge? So a couple of quick thoughts. So we got Mark Pitchard here saying, we have a media supply chain that is murky at best and fraudulent at worst. We need to clean it up and invest the time to grow. I have to say, having worked in it for 20 years, there is more dog shit media inventory out there than there is good quality supply, and most of you in advertisers have probably been buying a lot of it. So the fact of the realization is that bad supply, that bad quality, that bad thing is what's driving down the return of investment in digital. I believe digital can drive an ROI, but while we peddle the stuff that we have been peddling, that I have been packaging up and selling to many people over my career, deliberately sometimes to make my targets, it is a challenge we have to think about. But the other one here is just one little stat. This is how people can confuse data around it. Viewability, most people here will know about viewability. We talk about impressions, and then we talk about viewable impressions. Now, this research is from Lumen Research, who do eye tracking software. So we go, hey, I've got a 60% viewable rate. That's fantastic. That's better than average. Yes, I win. Well, actually, what we realize is even if the ads are on screen and viewable, they're not actually viewed. In the Lumen Research, consumers are 3 times more likely to look at an ad that's printed on a page than one that's displayed on a screen. But this bottom right corner here, of the ads that are viewed, only 9% were viewed for greater than a second. 9%. Seriously, what the fuck? It is literally like 9% of that ad. So if you put £100,000 into a marketing campaign, £9,000 was bordering on effective. I say bordering. Outdoor ads probably get a longer dwell time than that. It is a serious case. So just those 2 things alone significantly drive down the performance of it. But I don't know a single person who profits from making money from digital advertising who would go in at the front and say, by the way, we want to sell you some information and we want to invite you to buy some advertising. This is our stats. This is how good we are. Because if they gave that to you, if Google came to that to you, I doubt there would be as much investment into it. And that comes back to this bias thing. You are being given information, but you are being given self-serving information or filtered information. It's no different to politics. It's exactly the same as we see there as well. So as we say, how is so much being spent on something? That was just that campaign, that was a statistical blip. Don't worry, all the other campaigns which you're not measuring as rigorously, they're fine. They're absolutely fine. Oh, look at this shiny new thing over here. Don't worry about that. Shiny, shiny new over here. We see this all the time. And this leads us to confirmation bias, the second of our heuristics. We look for evidence that supports our existing view of the world. And I'll come on to the second point in a second, but I'll give you an example. When they looked at Democrat versus Republican voters and they looked at their search trends, it's not that people go online and do a search, read the news, read the articles that come up, and then go, now I've read all the articles, I'm going to form my view. No. First of all, you form your biased view, and then when they went into search, they clicked over-averagely onto results that matched their view. So that means, as an intrinsic bias that we have, we will seek out evidence that supports our pre-existing view and ignore evidence that doesn't. And that is a danger when we're in this area, because we have to be open to new information and new areas coming in. And one of the big ones, the big misdirections here, is that media usage is not the same as media effectiveness. Now, as I said, I've worked in mobile advertising a long time. I can do the spiel, I can make everybody buy it. It's the most touched device, it's your most personal device. It's the last device you touch before you go to sleep, the first device you touch in the morning. Wow, you spend 800 times a day accessing your mobile device. That is an amazing engagement material for marketing. No, it's not, because you confuse media usage with media effectiveness, and they are not the same. And that's just one way that you can look at the difference between the two. And the other thing, the last point I want to make is around availability bias. We're measuring the wrong things. And it also takes more effort to measure the right things. So digital is great. There are so many stats that you can get out of it. Click-through rates, impressions, dwell time, time of day, potential audience that's seen to it. These are lovely. These are really nice metrics. But we do marketing. As far as I understand it, the point of marketing is to sell stuff. Now, you could go one step before that, and I'm sure Mark Ritson will talk about that later. Okay, the step before that is to change people's perceptions or influence people's perceptions, and then sell stuff. That's about it. I used to work for a woman who was the president of the Coca-Cola account for Omnicom in North America, and she told me a wonderful thing. She wasn't a digital person, but she said that she'd have all these digital companies come into her and pitch to her all these services. And she would just sit there, and they'd do the whole presentations, and then she'd go at the end, that's really nice. How many more cans of Pepsi will that help me sell? But she never had the argument. If anybody goes around to Mexico, the big ad tech conference, I go around with advertisers every year, and the 2 things I say to those advertisers is, talk to everybody, see how many people have independent evidence that whatever they're flogging to you sells more of your products, and see if they talk about creative at all. Because from our research, not here, we know that 70% of the effect of performance is creative itself, not whether your RTB connection is based in Amsterdam with the servers and goes through somewhere else. But again, that information is easy to get hold of, but the information that talks about what actually drives sales is not. So let me just finish up with a few thoughts just to focus us going forward. That keeps going off. Seth Godin says here, Seth Godin is a web evangelist, built lots of companies, a really good thinker about it, but measurement is fabulous unless you're busy measuring what's easy to measure as opposed to what's important. And the challenge with understanding what's happening in marketing is what's easy to measure, the obligatory iceberg in most presentations, is that we measure what's at the top, not what's at the bottom. That's a lot harder to understand, but that is where you're trying to understand it. So when we talk about things like digital investment, in the UK it's about 22 billion, digital makes up a lot of it, even when you come to the measurement from an advertiser point of view, the challenge is everybody is claiming credit for it. TV, we did that. Google search, no, that's ours. Programmatic, no, that's ours. Media agency, no, that's the planning that's drove that sales. You need to invest more in this area. And it is hard to actually get into it. I'm not going to put barriers up and pretend you just flick a switch and it runs the reports and tells you. It takes investment and it takes time. And you've got to try to drive into the right decisions. So just to come back to some of our ROI studies, just in case people were sitting there thinking, oh yeah, but that's just overall. So this is from an FMCG advertiser. As you can see here, TV is still the dominant medium by a long way. Digital display, far on the right. And I would put mobile display even further on the right than that. Automotive. TV really, really big. Again, digital over there. Interestingly, VOD further to the right. But on this one here, retail, you see digital video is higher than broadcast VOD. Sorry, guys, for this presentation slide here. And this is driving this challenge that we're seeing, is that the actual share of spend in TV is not corresponding to the share of profit. TV is actually underinvested today, as a general, across all of our data points that we got, versus other medias. So, the canny advertiser could be going, well, actually, if all my other competitors are going over here and investing in stuff that isn't working and maybe not driving it, maybe I'll think over here. Now, we're not saying rush back to TV, in that area, but we are saying understand the data for you as an advertiser driving in that area. But how should you actually plan media effectiveness? Actually, you should go from the top down. You should go, what is your business targets? What are you trying to achieve? What are your long and short-term goals? And we'll talk through that in the next slide very quickly. What's your investment strategy versus brand investment versus short-term? So how much are you doing to build the effect of the brand and the appeal of the brand through to driving direct sales? Then you can start to get into what are your tactics. It's at that point we start to think, what's the difference between TV? Where should we put it into press? Where should we put it into outdoor? Where should we put it into digital? And really then getting from the macro, being the mediums, through to the micro, which is the broadcasters or the channels, right down to the nano, which is the executional side into that. Sorry, just one back. Oh, let me go back. But the problem is that actually digital, we quite often start at the bottom and go up. The number of media plans that I see that say, I need to drive X number of engagements, or I need number of clicks to drive it. And even within lots of advertiser organizations, and we work with many, there is a gap between we have the business targets and we have the metrics at the bottom. But quite often those middle stages are overlooked or not thought through fully. So when you're looking at it, really the strategies for an advertiser to drive more efficient ROI is really looking at where your advertising investment is, and then having that strategy, say, what are we trying to achieve in short-term sales, and what's the execution plan for that? And then what are we trying to do in changes in consumer perceptions and long-term consideration in sales? And things considered, how much to spend on communications relative to other growth levers. That's such an important one. Is it better to put £500,000 into TV or to take £500,000 out and do a price discount in store? Depends what your strategy is. If you're trying to build your brand, it might be the TV. If you're trying to drive short-term sales, it might be that. We shouldn't think of media as an isolated budget. It could go anywhere. You could take it out of media and put it in your call centers. That could drive more revenue for you. These are big decisions. So to finish off with Seth again, measurement is fabulous unless you're busy measuring what's easy to measure as opposed to what's important. I'll be here in the break if anyone wants to come and have a go at me and tell me that I'm full of shit. It's fine. I'm used to that. Thank you very much.